And welcome to another edition of the UIS Prairie Stars Coaches Show. I'm Tony Black. Joining me today is new UIS men's soccer coach, Jesse Miech. Jesse, welcome to UIS. You've been here for about 2 weeks now. Tell me everything that you've picked up so far in 2 weeks.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. Thank you. I think I've been here. Today's my 11th day, so just trying to get in the flow. Been working with the team. We've been going every morning pretty much. And just trying to get on the road, get on the telephone, start recruiting, and just trying to build a base right now. So it's a lot, but it's kind of all over the place. And next few weeks just try to focus in and get the guys going this summer with their off-season workout, and then get more players in here.
You inherit 12 players. And it was a tough season last year. I know you weren't here, so tell me everything that you've talked to your players about and your hopes for the 2011 season.
Yeah, well, we have 12 players now and 3 commitments that Chad brought in, and so it puts us at 15, but 2 of them are goalkeepers. So really, you're still looking at 13 players, and I'm talking. I cast a pretty big net as far as going outside the state, as far as Missouri, and then also some of my other contacts from other places I've been, South Carolina, down in Florida where I have some recruiting connections, and then up in Wisconsin where I'm originally from. So trying to cast this big net, but it's tough to do as it's pretty late. So recruiting a lot of kids, and hopefully we'll bring in another 10 to 12 more players. Looking forward, we got a pretty good group of guys right now. It's just we got to add more players to make it more competitive during practice, and then also for just exercise purposes. As far as explaining to the team, we got to have a big number, and it helps to have like a scout team like you would in American football, where if you're playing against a 4-4-2 one day, it's going to be different than playing against 4-3-3. So it's good to have a scout team where you can set up the opposition's formation. You can play against it before you actually see it.
Yeah, during your spring workouts, you really can't hold an 11-on-11 drill.
No, you can't. I mean, we got 12, so it's a lot of small-sided stuff, and it's not that big of a deal because I've come in so late. So I think my main thing is just technical stuff, keeping the guys clean, and just staying excited about the summer, because I came in at the end of the semester, and the spring can wear on when you don't have the 18 games to look forward to. It's practice every day, weights, and then at the end you get smacked with finals. So I've been keeping it light, and then we'll hit the ground running once the fall comes around.
Now you come from a area of hotbed of soccer, St. Louis. You worked at St. Louis University. What's the high school and club soccer like in St. Louis, the St. Louis area? It's
competitive. I mean, you're asking anybody from St. Louis, they're going to think St. Louis soccer is the best in the country, which it's close. I mean, they definitely can make an argument for it. There's just a lot of kids, rich tradition with a lot of national team players coming out of there in the past, a lot of national championships at St. Louis University. You got SIUE that's right down the road that was also very competitive in the past, winning national championships. They used to play each other with the Bronze Boot. And then, Scott Gallagher, Lou Fuse, the Old Bush, St. Louis Soccer Club, and now the academy has come in, everybody's kind of combined, so now it's like a powerhouse. But the soccer's good, and hopefully I can tap into a little bit of that talent. There's enough players out there that just being around it a lot, I should be able to get a few kids from that area to come in.
Now you grew up around soccer. Your mom's the head coach at UW Whitewater, correct?
Stevens Point.
Same
conference.
So tell me about growing up as your mom being the head coach, and what that helped you become a head coach in soccer.
Yeah, I think actually both of my parents were coaches. My dad's the football coach there, my mom's the soccer. So it's kind of funny. Hockey was actually my main sport. They kind of threw me into that with my younger brother. Actually, my dad's good friend was the head hockey coach there, so he got me in hockey. So I really didn't have to choose between sports, so I kind of had my own thing. It wasn't just like my parents' sport. So me and my brother did that. But in the end, I ended up being a better soccer player than I was hockey, so I went that route. My dad being a football coach kind of gave me a hard time every once in a while, but he had my brother, he was a quarterback, so that was all right. But it's just a lifestyle, just used to that grind of not having traditional hours. You're normally working on the weekends, and you're going to be up late recruiting kids because they've got sports themselves with school during the day. So it's nonstop. But, I don't know really any different. I grew up with my parents, basically on the phone late at night in the kitchen. I was down in the basement with my dad watching game film when I was like 6, 7 years old, and listening to recruiting calls, and it's just something I grew up around, and I don't think I know any different. So, it definitely set the base for me, to know what I was getting into.
Now, most American kids, they only usually get into soccer every 4 years for the World Cup.
Mm-hmm.
And so how do you get people to, to come out to soccer and not just realize that it's a sport every 4 years? It's something that goes on every year.
Yeah, well, I think it's a unique time, just for the sport, or I don't know, for the country, whatever you want to say, but I think soccer is really getting to a point where it's the largest organized youth sport in the country. There are 1,000 upon 1,000 kids playing. You don't see, baseball and football having the numbers that these soccer programs are getting. And, we're sitting at Scott Gallagher in St. Louis. There's 240 teams just on the Missouri side. And you look at each team, they have 20 kids. I mean, you do the math. That's a lot of kids playing, and it's in every city. Maybe not that big, but it's growing. So, you asked how do I promote it? It's through going out and just being around the kids. Working club. I still work club with Scott Gallagher on the Illinois side. With the Metro Club, I'm working with Academy, and just getting involved with the kids, letting them know who you are and, your kind of passion, love for the game. And, I think it's going to be more of a thing in the future where you're getting, people my age, that play college soccer, once we start having kids and getting them involved in the game, but it's really the kids, that I'm actually coaching right now that are 14, 15, 16 years old, that once their generation starts having kids, I think that's when it's really going to take off. So I think, we're about 15, 20 years away of, not saying taking over, but it's catching fire, and it's exciting.
And, what kind of style of coach are you? Are you aggressive, or do you like to just play the defense and let your defense win the game? Or,
I think coaching style, philosophy, I'm definitely, more of a tactical technician kind of person. I like to what I've told my team, and this is, when I go through the interview process and all this stuff, you always, have to, they say, what's your philosophy, this and that, is first off, we're going to be consistent and we're going to be organized. And I don't know how, next season's going to go, but the one thing I can guarantee is, our players are going to know what's going on, what to do, and just be very organized. And when you talk about organization, it doesn't always mean just defense. That's normally what's tied into. But, set pieces, taking advantage of opportunities that we get, and then also just being able to be organized on defensive set pieces. And, the other thing is, as a coach, I'm not one of those guys that changes up and likes to run a whole bunch of schemes. I like to be in a system where I do one thing and I just make minor adjustments to the team that we play. I've been around a lot of coaches and played for coaches that switch a formation every game, or personnel and positions, all that stuff. I'm not a huge fan of it. It works for some people, and it's got to be the right fit. But I'm one of those guys that tries to accentuate our strengths against an opponent, and then also try to neutralize their strengths in just minor adjustments.
Now, as the goalkeeper coach at St. Louis University, and how does a goalkeeper become the coach on the field?
Well, that's a funny question. You look at sports that have a goalkeeper or a goaltender, is like hockey. If you look, there are a good majority of coaches in the college game that were either a goaltender in hockey or a goalkeeper in soccer. And I don't know, people joke about it, like, you're, a goalie, how can you coach field players? But you gotta look at it, it's like, if you have a playing career of 18 years, you're staying back behind everybody and watching it, day after day after day. So you become pretty analytical because you're not always in the mix of it all, and you've got a lot of time to sit back there, especially in soccer. You're always involved, but you get to see it for 90 minutes from a more, panoramic view, I guess, than being just isolated on the field. So that's one thing. And then, I think it does help out just being, open, because as a goalkeeper, you got to understand and really know what other players are doing on the field, because you're the kind of, the captain at the back and director. Because, like I said before, you can see it all, but you got to know what your outside backs are supposed to do, your midfielders, your forwards, where you're pushing people. So you really have an understanding as a player of what's supposed to go on. Whether, I'm not saying everybody, I don't want my team to be like this, but sometimes you got forwards and they know that they got to be here and do this and do that and really just focus on scoring, but don't know what the right back is supposed to do, or the center back. They're more zoned in on just going to goal, trying to score. And I think, being a goalkeeper, you got to know everything, and that kind of just helps lean your way getting into coaching.
No, I've seen some goalkeepers where they're very loud and boisterous and pointing things out to their teammates, and some goalkeepers are a little quiet. What do you want your goalkeeper to be?
It's always good to be very vocal. Now, I coach a lot of young kids, and you run into some kids that don't talk at all, and whether it's their personality, or maybe they don't know what to say, or the right words to use, or they can't read the game. That's one thing, but it's then you get these kids that just constantly talk, and they're loud and a little bit not obnoxious, and just overpowering in a sense, where you just want to turn around and just, hey man, chill out. But I guess if I had to pick between the two, I guess I'd want the louder one, because it's a lot easier to make them do the right things. But on the other side, the kid that doesn't talk, it's tough to teach that if they're not comfortable doing it. So you've got to find a happy medium, because if you got to have a kid that knows the game, that can demand things out of their backs and have more than one voice, a sense of urgency at times, but then also that calming, we've got everything in control. If you got a guy out there just yelling all the time, your team will drown him out and basically won't listen to him, because they're just used to hearing his voice the whole game, and there's no fluctuation in their voice, so you don't know when he says man on, is there really a man on? How much time do you really have? You got to be able to have a calm and confident keeper that's simple, to the point, sharp, very direct, and just not talking or cheerleading back there.
And going into next season, you have 2 weeks to get your team prepared for the fall season, starting at mid-August, and your first game is Labor Day weekend. What are those 2 weeks like for you and your team?
I think the spring season, or not the spring, but the summer, the off season is really going to determine a lot of that. And I've been kind of beating into these guys' heads while we've been finishing up these last few practices, is that they've got to be in shape, and we will be in shape when we play. But I explained it to them. If they do the work this summer, preseason will be a lot more enjoyable, and it's going to cut down injuries in the long run. If we're trying to get in shape in preseason, it's possible to do it, but then it wears your body down pretty quickly, and when you want to be peaking at the end of the season, that's when you're actually kind of getting burnt out. So that's going to depend a lot. If they come in shape, and we can get right to the soccer stuff. And first thing is that as a coach, I got to be able to develop players, and that might take a little longer, but just a lot of technical stuff. But most importantly is to get a system in place. Get the players that are new, that I haven't been working with, know my style of coaching, being comfortable, being able to receive direction from me and not worry that, I'm the head coach, being nervous, whatever. Got a lot of freshmen going to come in, so that's going to be a challenge, getting those guys being comfortable. And then, just getting that culture going. And, this year's going to be different than a lot of other years, where we got to set a tone right away, the way things are going to be. And like I bring up culture, like just the way we act on the field, off the field, showing up on time, doing the right things, and being accountable for our actions. So it may be a little bit less about the soccer as individuals, players, but more so as a program. We've got to set a system, a culture in place right away.
Now, there's a lot of freshmen come in, they want to come in and they want to impress you. They come in shape, and they come in gung-ho. And a lot of returnees, they'll sit by the pool and say, "Oh, I'll do the workout in 2 weeks." How do you get your returnees to buy in?
Well, it's pretty simple for myself. Whether a kid's on money, no money, whether he's a freshman or a senior, I'm the type of coach that I made it very clear to my guys. I really don't care. I'm going to play the player that I think is going to help me win a game. So in the end of it all, it's simple for myself to say, you're coming out of shape, you got a freshman who's hungry, who's been grinding the whole summer, and you got that nervousness as a freshman, not knowing what to expect. So a lot of those guys come in prepared, and they'll lose their spot if they don't come in shape. And the other thing is that just being around a handful of programs in the last 5-6 years in my short coaching career, I've seen a lot of different ways to run preseasons. And as far as fitness tests, and as a player, even though I was a goalkeeper, I was built with more of a cross-country runner's type of body, and I've always blessed with an aerobic base where I could run, and there was times where I wasn't in the greatest shape because I wasn't training for distance. I was training for more anaerobic power, explosiveness to be a goalkeeper. But I could gut out a 2-mile run or a longer distance run and still do fairly well in comparison with all the field players. But I've got some tests set up where you're not going to be able to fake it just because you might be tough mentally. I mean, if you don't train this summer, it will show. It will show for sure.
Again, going into next season, like we said, you got 2 weeks to train for your first games. Your first 2 games are exhibitions. What are your hopes out of the exhibitions, just to see how how your guys perform in?
Yeah. Well, with the exhibition, I think our first one is against Lincoln Land, and you don't know what you're going to get when you're playing a JUCO always, because it's a freshman sophomore school, and they get new kids all the time, and a lot of JUCO colleges are very talented with the type of players they can get coming in there. Some of those guys are not Division I qualifiers, so they've been recruited, Division I and been on, offered scholarship money, and it just wasn't the right route. So they decided to step back, go to a JUCO, figure some things out. Very talented players, and then they also bring in a lot of foreign athletes. That kids have been brought up playing the game their whole life, and it's their parents played it, their grandparents play it, and so we're going to run into some good competition, I believe, with Lincoln Land. But I really don't care about the result. It's an exhibition game. I need to personally evaluate each one of these players, and it's one thing now. We're training with 12 players. I had individual meetings yesterday and the day before. I can see their technical ability, but I don't know how they play big. Full field 11v11. A kid who looks great in a small-sided game may not look as good in a larger game because of speed and just strength of striking the ball. So, in saying that, I got to evaluate the guys that are still here. And then it's the same thing, when you go into a game. You really don't know what a player's like until they get in a live match. So, I'm not going to play to win an exhibition match. I'm going to put players in, pull players out, try players at new positions, try to get pretty much everybody playing time so I can get a look at everybody. So it's just a trial and error kind of game, just testing a whole bunch of stuff out, and it's more evaluation. So it's definitely less about the result and more about the preparation for the regular season.
Now this conference is also commonly known as the Big East of Division II because we have so many teams.
Yeah.
Talk about your thoughts if you know a lot about the GLVC and what you think of this conference.
Yeah, I never thought about that. No, that is a good comparison to Big East because it's a very large conference, and the Big East is a grind just for the fact that they got so many different teams in there. I think West Virginia, like a UConn, Notre Dame, South Florida. It's just it's a battle. It's a different type of team everywhere you go. So I imagine it's going to be like that in this conference where you look at a Drury. I live down in Springfield, so I kind of know that team. They're going to get normally in the past, I know they got a handful of Gallagher kids coming in, but in the past they get the top kids that were kind of slid past some people, and they're always known as a hard-working team. But then you go to William Jewell in Kansas City, and they get some really top-end club players that are tic-tac players that connect the dots and move the ball fast. And then you go over to Northern Kentucky, that win a national championship. They're a whole different team, and Missouri University Science and Technology now?
Yes, Missouri S&T.
Yeah. With Joe Ahern over there bringing some experience from DePaul and out in Colgate, there's a lot of different styles of teams. So it's going to be a grind, I'm going to have to be on my game as a coach as far as, what I can do, like I said before, how I can take our strengths and try to neutralize some of theirs. But, it's not an easy conference at all. But, when I'm recruiting, that's definitely a strength. I can say we're in one of the top conferences, maybe the top conference in the country, and that excites kids. And looking forward to being a part of the Great Lakes Valley Conference. Yeah, it's gonna be tough.
Now you did mention Northern Kentucky, though, to win the national championship in the fall. So talk about, is that, you said that's a recruiting standpoint to bring people in to say, hey, you play in one of the top conferences. Do you say, hey, we have Northern Kentucky, they won the national championship? Definitely.
And your conference rivals are, there can be some pretty good games that go back and forth, and whether you dislike a team, like a team, it's always great when teams within the conference are having success, in the postseason, and or even non-conference games. It just makes everybody, look better, and the conference gets stronger for it. And the better schedule you play, the better your teams are going to get. So that's definitely something I use on recruiting. Hey, we've got this team, and this team, and by the way, the national champions are in our conference, and we will play them next year. So that helps, definitely does.
All right. Well, I want to thank you, Jesse, for joining us today. This will be the last edition of the UIS Prairie Stars Coaches Show this spring. We'll be back in the fall. Thank you for joining us, and go Stars.